Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog and podcast, Arichcomiclife. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes my experiences of watching nearly 1,000 comedians and counting over the last 46 years. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today. It's the wonderful Mr. Alex Lowe. Yes!
Thanks, Rich.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Oh, great. Thanks. How are you?
I'm all right, my friend. I'm so happy that you're here doing this today. I really
Honestly,
am.
I'm delighted to be asked. When I always, I really see myself much more as an actor and a sort of comic actor than a stand-up or even just, I don't say just a comedian, or even defined as a comedian. So I love it when people sort of put me in the bracket as comedian.
Well, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
that's
thanks.
Brilliant. We're going to talk about your comedy career, and it's going to last about an hour or so.
Okay.
We're going to go right back to the start. And can you tell me, please, how did you become an actor and a comedian in the first place?
Well, I grew up in the London borough of Harrow, Pinner, a lovely leafy suburb. And when I was probably about 10 or 11, I asked my parents if I could go to a place called the Studio School, which was in Pinner. And it was a very sort of austere, quite formal actors training, which was run by two women from the Guildhall in London. And so from about the age of 11 to 18, I was going to these very sort of strict drama lessons. And as a result of that, there was a sort of agency which is attached to this drama school. And I did a lot of stuff when I was, professional stuff when I was a child. So I did Another Country, the play in the West End, before it became the film. And that was with Kenneth Branagh and Rupert Everett. And I did Mansfield Park for the BBC. And I mean, those days we had cassettes. You young people out there now with your Spotifys and all that, we had cassettes, and I recorded the entire series of Adrian Mole when I was 15. It had just come out. So I did all sorts of things, and so I was a child actor, really, is the truth of it. And then I, not something that my parents were remotely into. My dad was a tea taster, of all things.
Fantastic.
My mum worked for Harrow Social Services, and my dad was also a sort of semi-professional saxophonist. He used to play in dance bands and what have you, who came from this sort of East End tradition of cabaret and all that. This is turning into a very long answer. I'll get there in a minute.
Fine, please.
And so, he had slightly more of the performing bent about him. And so that's what I did. I did a lot of professional stuff when I was a youngster. And then in terms of, and it was always comedy. I mean, I things like going to Cubs. I only had one badge, which was the entertainer's badge.
Brilliant.
And sort of at the end of many, many Cubs meetings, they would finish early for Alex Lowe to give us another one of his extravaganzas, the lucky kids. Yeah. So I would be writing stuff, and, we belonged to the church. Not that we were not remotely churchy people. I don't think my parents were into that at all. It was just, I don't know, in the mid-70s, that was maybe a thing you did. It was like there was sort of pantos at the church, and there was a family party at the church, and the Cubs and Scouts had a sort of Christmas gang show and all that. So I did a lot of stuff there, and I've always just been interested in comedy, really.
Yeah.
And so mostly a straight actor, and then, but any chance to do comedy was my thing. That's the end of that rather long introduction.
That's brilliant, because it's similar to me. I was in the Cubs when I was very young. I was brought up in Carlisle, and similar sort of thing. You had the shows that they used to do there, and I used to be involved behind the scenes, putting all the scenery out. But I used to love watching comedy on TV. And that's where I got the buzz for it, and it's just taken off from there. So well,
me too. I mean, of course, I don't really keep up with comedy nowadays, particularly, and my Clinton Baptiste character that I've been touring around the country, occasionally I'll see a review that says old-fashioned comedy at its best.
I don't
and
agree
I think,
at all.
Why is that old-fashioned? I kind of think comedy is sort of, it's comedy, it's like it always follows these sort of rules of, the rule of three, or the third one is a what's the word? A non sequitur. Or you sort of reincorporate something you've said earlier, or there's a sort of narrative arc, or I'm doing pure old double entendres or whatever. But I always think, is it old fashioned? I don't think it's not particularly meta. It's not Stuart Lee, but I kind of think it's honest to goodness. I've actually bothered to write a joke. You know what I mean? What I was going to say about that was, the comedy, TV comedy was a huge part of it. Like you, Rich. Yeah. Ronnie Barker's absolutely one of my heroes from Porridge. Yeah. I mean, when I think about Porridge, that is my inspiration, Ronnie Barker, really, because when you see the character of Fletcher, I think part of me honestly can't believe that guy didn't exist in real life.
It was extraordinary, wasn't it?
Isn't it? It's a three-dimensional character, and maybe it's to do with growing up, but played with all the pathos, all the comedy, all the lightness of touch, the brilliant timing. And he was also, his son Adam, who got in a lot of trouble, Adam Barker, at my drama school in Pinner. So he was sort of mate of mine, a mate acquaintance, from that time. Lest anyone thinks I was involved. I think no. But Ronnie was a huge influence, and people like Mike Yarwood, the impression.
He was the first superstar impressionist, Yarwood, wasn't he, in the 70s? And I always think he could have a fantastic Fringe show even now. But he was famous, unfortunately, for having confidence problems, and he won't go back on, and it's very, very sad. And with the two Ronnies, I totally agree. Porridge, and all of the things that he did, he famously, when he was interviewed, he was very, very shy as himself, and when he got into character, he was extraordinary. He became a different character. We were very fortunate to go and see the last two Ronnies recording.
Oh, really?
And, I've never seen such warmth in an audience. They all
absolutely,
stood up, and he was clearly not well, but they had all the writers in there, and just amazing night, and the warmth for them was extraordinary.
Well, that's right, and I feel the same about the two Ronnies as well. I know, of course, some of it hasn't dated very well, but in terms of that lovely kind of writing and the rhythms of that writing and punnery, and I mean, I love that, and even at that young age I really appreciated that. And I'm actually, Ronnie Corbett come to that, I really loved, and I don't know whether people would have the patience for it now, but that lovely story where he'd go off in these segues, it was so much a part of my childhood, that. And it's like at that age you're like a sponge, and you take these things on board, and somehow they come out in later life, to such an extent that when I'm touring, I often play City Varieties in Leeds, that theatre. And I mean, it's my favourite theatre in the country. It's sort of steeped in tradition. It's big enough that you're on stage, and touch wood, I've always filled it. It's intimate and yet a proper theatre. And what I was going to say about was, in the days when the good old days, of course, was filmed there, which in the early mid 70s, when I was a tiny lad, it suddenly occurred to me that was the reason I wanted to get on stage, not the National Theatre or the Royal Court or something. It was seeing all those people in this sort of lots of colour, throwing their heads back and laughing in the warm. You know what I mean? That's what brilliant. I really like. A really good laugh. I mean, and I think hopefully, when I write my material, I just pack it full of gags. I can't bear, and it's my cowardice as a comedian. I know comedians will go forever without a laugh, and then there's a massive payoff. But I cannot, I want to go bang, 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 just rack it full of jokes.
That's fascinating, because I interviewed Barry Cryer on here, on this blog, and of course he famously started at the City Varieties in Leeds, and the classic comedians that he's written for and provided jokes to, it's exactly that style. It's bang 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 straight away, with the jokes.
I mean, when this Clinton tour that I'm doing, this is Clinton behind me.
We're going to come on to that in a minute.
I have a director who always directs me, and he's much more of the sort of drama theatre director. And we had early on we came up. He's a fantastic guy, and I'm using him again for this show that I'm going out with soon. Which by the time people see this might well have been and gone, but
Tim never know.
Right, but his thing was all about, now really, take the audience into your confidence here. Here's a moment which should be very Jackanory and very storyteller mode. And I had to say, I know what these places are like. They want you to do gag. You don't really have the luxury of going, now here's a lovely story. I mean, you sit here, well, loads of comedians do it, but I'm thinking about Kevin Bridges. He'll tell a lovely story about, famously going to visit his mate and they have a Chinese meal. You know that one, which I love. But it's peppered full of gags along the way. I'm just, and it's my own cowardice because the horror of standing there and seeing people going, "Come on, where's the bloody jokes?"
So you're acting away and everything's wonderful. And where did the characters come from? Where did Clinton Baptiste come from, and where did Barry from Watford come from? And all your comedy characters.
Barry, first of all, was an absolutely calculated thing. My Cockney relatives from southeast London all sound like that, or did. They're all dead now. But, this old style Cockney, where the back of the throat is it's a second bit sorry, so they don't have the lung capacity. So that's sort of based on them. And it's an affectionate look at them. It's not meant to be a massive piss take. It's just a kind of lovely way they speak. So that was that, and I did it once for Ian Lee on his LBC show.
Sure.
I used to do a show on XFM, and Ian once phoned me up as his only character, Mike from Camden, which just sounded like Ian Lee. I mean, he didn't really have no acting required. And so I thought, when Ian started the show on LBC, I thought, I'm going to phone up. I really want to try this character out. And in a similar way that Peter Cook did with Sven, the Norwegian fisherman,
yes,
I thought, well, this is a golden opportunity to just do a character and, just see if you can get away with it. And Ian, after about 5 minutes, suddenly realised it was me. And we just kept doing it, and it became a bit of a thing. And then I thought, I'm going to do an Edinburgh show. How am I going to turn it into an Edinburgh show? I know I'll do something with Ian that gets me banned. And we met up one day. I said, look, what I want to do, Ian, is be banned. I want to use audio from your show of people being up in arms about poor Barry being banned, which is exactly what we did. So that was a very, pathos-laden show as Barry. And so that was sort of my own thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, Richard, I've had so many goes with it. I had a series on Radio 4. I did a series on Channel 4 with Noel Edmonds as Barry called Cheap, 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 which no one seems to bloody well remember, which was on for 31-hour episodes one summer about 4 years ago. You remember it?
I remember it, yeah. And you were hilarious on that.
Thank you so much. But it sort of came and went. And it was one of those, I think, like a lot of things, if we'd just been given more time, it would have absolutely have flown. It would have been great. But I think it looked like it was cobbled together a bit and shoved on. And it just came and went. And it was a real shame. And I've sort of neglected Barry a bit since then, just because.
The wonderful thing about the character for me is that because the audience feel sorry for him because of the way he looks and the dishevelment and all the rest of it. You can practically say whatever you want and get away with it.
Yeah, there is that. There is that. There really is that.
It works so well because the audience sit there and think, I can't believe he's just said that.
Yeah, you can get away with blue murder. Yeah, I mean that's always the thing with characters. I think that you just couldn't otherwise. But I mean it's sort of fair enough. I mean I don't think that's cheating. I don't think it means you can say the most disgusting thing ever. But if you're staying true to the character, that's what he would say. And
it's all double entendres and innuendo and everything, isn't it? It's not rudeness. It's just what the audience perceive of it. Yeah.
I mean, I always think like with Barry playing an old man, it would be tedious if you were just doing kind of, oh my poor old back hurts. Oh, wasn't it lovely in the war? I mean, no one wants to hear that. You know what I mean? You've got to do quite contemporary stuff as this old man and his take on it. There's nothing more dull, I'm sure. I mean, I remember when I was a lot younger, as it happens, I do have a few joint aches nowadays, but I don't expect anyone to find it particularly funny or interesting, you know? But, so, yeah, I always hated that, you know. Oh, isn't it funny when you get older, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, my goodness. Oh, it's all sagging now. Who gives a toss about that? You know, so I don't want to do that as Barry.
I'm in my early 50s and I'm falling apart, mate. And I think
yeah, me too. I've done something to my... Having said this is not interesting, I'm now going to tell you. I've done something to my knuckles, right?
Oh, dear.
And I don't know, it might be the dog pulling on the lead, but it's been like this for 2 months. And if there's anyone out there with, I don't know whether it's having the COVID injection or if it's long COVID, but it will not go away. And I can't even get a bloody doctor's appointment. You know, you try getting a doctor's appointment, it's a nightmare. I keep waiting for it to get better, and it doesn't seem to.
Well, I've had both the injections, and I was like I felt hungover both times, but then I was all right. But then suddenly I've got this pain in my thumb, and I've always had a bad back, and you know it always keeps coming to the fore. It seems to find things. I don't know whether.
Do you think that's what it is?
Maybe I don't know.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, maybe because
it's worrying me a bit.
You'll be fine, I'm sure, mate. You'll be absolutely.
Thank you so much, Doctor. At last, I've got a diagnosis.
Let's move on to in my mind, your greatest creation, Clinton Baptiste. Where did he come from?
Well, first of all, I have to say, I'll be honest, it's not my creation. It's originally Peter Kay's creation, Neil Fitzmaurice and Dave Spikey. Basically, it was from Phoenix Nights, and Peter asked me to. I'd done something with Peter before, that Peter Kay thing, where I played a character called Sparky, and Peter said, "Would I like to play this part in Phoenix Nights?" And then I did it, and then we did it again for that one about the superstar. Remember the parody of the X Factor that he did. So I played it again there. And then in 2015, he said, would I play it on in Phoenix Nights Live at Manchester Arena for Comic Relief? And it was so, I mean, you know, for an egomaniac, you come up through the stage like that, 14,000 people, and say, yeah, all right, get a huge response. It was so thrilling. I just loved it, you know. And so I said to Peter, look, at the time when we first did it, I said I'd really like to do this as a stand-up character. And he was reluctant for, I don't know, one reason or another. But then in 2015, I asked again. He went, oh, yeah, okay, if you want to do that. It made me think, I wonder whether I asked properly in the first place, because I could have been doing this for 20 years. But he said fine, and he gave me the wig, which is a very expensive wig, and the costume. And the thing is, I of course, it sort of is my creation now because I've fleshed out the character. It was only 2 scenes in Phoenix Nights. And he's got a sort of history, and I've done 4 podcast series now. and he's got a rival, he's got a sister, and we kind of we understand who Clinton is now.
Yeah.
But I always check with Peter. I mean, I would hate for him one day to go, hold on a minute, you've just sold your soul to Coca-Cola or something. Is no one going to ask me? It's my creation, So I just check in with him, and I've got to say he's been really very loyal to me, and said it's all fine.
How did you get to know him? How did you know him in the first place?
Well, years ago, I did in 1998. I did a show at the Edinburgh Festival, a solo show. I've done a lot of solo shows. About British wrestling, based on the book by Simon Garfield called The Wrestling.
Right.
And it was all about Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks and Dropkick Johnny Peters, Johnny Quango, Adrian Street, all this stuff, all the greats I remember from World of Sport.
Yeah, World of Sport, yeah.
That's it. And Peter Kay came along to review it for Edinburgh Nights with bomber Pat Roach, who you'll know from Auf Wiedersehen, Pat.
Of course, yeah. He's in the Indiana Jones films as well.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so Peter, I think, he was just really up and coming then. And I didn't realise, as I say, I don't really follow comedy that much. But we sort of knocked around a bit at Edinburgh, where he was doing his show. Yeah. And he always, I've often told this story before, but it's in his book, Saturday Night Peter, where... I'm delighted that he even remembers this episode, but he turned up with bomber Pat Roach, and I was playing this fictional character, Scott Bradley, who the idea was he was doing this show at Edinburgh to raise money to go and fight for what used to be called WWF in those days, or WCW in America.
Yeah.
And Pat Roach came up at the end of it, and I've been playing Brian Crabtree, Max Crabtree, Dickie Davis, Kent Walton. I've been playing all these characters, and Pat Roach said to me, "I haven't seen you on the circuits at all. Who have you been fighting?" And I went, "Well, no, I'm an actor. It's not real." And, "Oh, okay." And we carried on talking, and then he went, "I didn't see you at Tiger Ryan's funeral the other day." And I looked at Peter. I thought, I can't keep telling you I'm not a real wrestler. So to this very day, if I ever see Peter Kay, he says to me, "I didn't see you at Tiger Ryan's funeral." So that's how we met.
That's how you met. Well, I think Peter Kay is unbelievably funny. I would put him up there with Eric Morecambe and Tommy Cooper, and he's just an absolute natural. I first saw him on a bill of 5 acts at a club in Manchester well before he was famous, and he was 4th on the bill. Yeah. And I laughed so hard I missed the 5th act. I was still laughing, and I said to my friend, "He's going to be a superstar. He's just funny. He's got funny bones." And I followed him from day one. As you say, I've got all the books behind me on the bookshelf, all these books and videos and everything. I've seen him many, many times live. Yeah. And I also think as well, Phoenix Nights, when it was released at the same time, it was released the same year as The Office.
That's right, yeah.
The Office deservedly got all the plaudits, but it's such a great series, Phoenix Nights. There are so many episodes that I remember vividly. My favourite one is where the club was burnt down and they had to do the family fun day. But there are so many that come to mind. And I saw Phoenix Nights live. I was in the audience in Manchester. And when you came up from underground, everybody around me just went bananas. Because
it was lovely.
Even although the character is created by him, the very fact that you play it so perfectly that everybody around me just went bananas when you came on, and
that's so nice.
Such a funny, warm. You can get away with anything, and you do, because you're just warm to the character.
That's good. Well, I mean, it's my horror if anyone is upset. I never want to upset people. I know comedians who think that's great.
Yeah.
I just, I really am of the opinion people have paid.
Exactly, yeah.
And I know a couple of comedians I can think of who, if they don't do very well, it's like, well, they're not ready for me. If they don't like it, that's what I do. It's like, no, you're serving them. It ain't, if you just want to do your thing, do it in your bedroom. So I would hate for people to be upset. And I've had a couple of times where I've done Clinton and people have been upset, offended, and these are not, they don't necessarily know Phoenix Nights, and why should they? It was 20 years ago. But I sort of, or they think, they think it's all real. And I think of myself as a clairvoyant medium, but anyone with half a brain can tell it's a joke, So, I like to keep it warm and,
It's so true, because I've told a lot of comedians this. The reason for this blog, I went on a half-day writing course just to brush up my skills, and I was with a load of people who wanted to be reviewers, and the woman who ran the course said to me, we forget who you are. And I said, well, I'm not a reviewer, I'm not a critique, I'm not a diarist, I'm not a reporter. I'm a member of the audience, and I'm out to have a good time. And I think I've got a good idea. I've got this enormous spreadsheet of every single act I've seen for the last 40 odd years. And I think
really?
it was originally a book, but I couldn't afford the publishing rights.
Right, okay.
So my friend said, turn it into a blog, and it's just taken off. It's fantastic. And I think the blog is an enthuse more than anything. I'm doing my very best to support all the people who go out there and have a go. It's an extraordinary thing.
You have got to be, Richard, one of the most famous comedy audience members.
Very kind.
Seriously, and anyone out there, performers, audience people, comedy fans, you summed it up, Richard, because you are there for a good laugh. And I think currently, and I'm hoping that's what people want. Nothing arch about it, nothing clever, nothing. What are they trying to do here? Really, let's have a laugh, please. I don't want to do anything other than make people laugh. But you're great for that, and it really, of course, it encourages the bloody comedians.
Of course,
So you have a better night, everyone. Yes.
I think, and I think, as you say, it's such a positive thing, and such an awful time. What's not to love? When I love to go out and look forward to a specific bill. You're a classic act where if your name is on the bill, I know I'm going to have a good time.
Oh, good.
I always do. So you're on stage doing your characters, your wonderful characters. How do you remember all your jokes and routines? Do you have a method of remembering?
Well, it's a good point. I am. This is my mortal terror, is forgetting lines. I mean, when I go and I'm one of these actors who I've always tapped up on everyone's sitcoms and stuff. I'm normally there for like a day or two, where you turn up, you're in a hotel room going, I've got to remember these bloody lines. I've got, everyone else they know the costume department. They know, they're all up and running. And there's a real thing when you turn up sometimes on a TV set. It's like, okay, ladies and gentlemen, can you gather around, please? Heads of department. Okay, quiet, please. We're going to have a rehearsal. And you're there going, oh, my God, I don't want everyone to think, who's the new boy? He doesn't know his lines, So as I say, it is what is my Achilles heel. I always think, everyone else has turned up. In the case of comedy, someone has booked the venue. There's a technical bloke. They've organised the act. The very least you can do is know your bloody lines, right? And I'm much more of an actor, as I say, than a stand-up. And I don't just, I was on with Liam Pickford, who toured with me, who's one of my support acts. He goes on with no joke. He's got one joke, and he'll just do the rest with the audience, which I admire hugely, but it just isn't me. I'm real belt and braces, and sometimes it looks like it's improvised. Really, 90% isn't. You got to, occasionally you'll have to react to something. But so to remember it, I've been in my new office here for my new material I'm trying out for the new tour. I've just got little things which, you sort of remember this bit. If I say that bit, it sounds a little bit like this. Oh yeah, that's the next gag. But I'm sure for some people it's much more organic, and they pluck stuff out of the air and, let's drop that bit and I'll do this. I'm absolutely linear. This is the act from start to finish. But that's because I'm an actor, really, not a madman.
It's interesting because the most creative thing I've done other than this blog, I wrote a play, a half-hour play, which originally I was going to send up and still might put on for Edinburgh. But myself and my friend put it on, the two of us put it on for Comic Relief, and we got nearly £2,000 for it. We did 3 shows, and the play is called The Applicant, and it's basically about me coming down from Carlisle to London. I've got a very successful girlfriend, but I've never had a job, and I've never had an interview. So it was waiting room interview, waiting room interview, waiting room interview. So of course when I run out in the waiting room, there's nobody there and I'm nervous, so I start talking to the audience. So I wrote these great long monologues.
Sounds great.
So the first night I ran out, and we'd practiced this for 10 weeks. I completely forgot the monologue. And I'm like a rabbit in headlights, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we've had 10 weeks on this, and I never made the mistake again. And when the other actor came on, we just bounced off each other. But I've never forgotten that. And I think acting, the question is, learning lines for a play or a TV show or whatever it is, must be slightly different to stand up, or is it not when you're a comedy character actor?
Well, the first thing to say is, of course, no one's going to interrupt you when you're learning your set. I think with the likes of my comedy creations, it's sort of easier, and you just enjoy the way you might say something, because it's sort of second nature. So and the other thing is, you've written it, so if you paraphrase a little bit, it doesn't matter. If you're in a play or a TV, you have someone saying, well, that's not the line, and can you give me the proper line? That's a little bit like the line, but not the line, I mean, I think the other thing to say is, of course, that I do not change I really stick religiously to my piece of writing. And if I'm trying something new, which might be a problem to remember, honestly, Richard, it's really tiny bits. I'm just not brave enough to stand there with a sea of faces and go, okay, here we go. Here's a wholesale new 10 minutes, I just can't do it. And, I have done that. I mean, well, not 10 minutes, probably 5 minutes of new material at Top Secret Club in Covent Garden.
I know it well.
And it was terrifying. I mean, it's like they're a very young audience for a kick-off there. Very young, very London sort of media savvy, comedy savvy. And I sort of did it just because I didn't know any better. I'm not really in a community of stand-up comedians. So I thought, oh, well, there's a night. And I've done it a few times, and it's utterly terrifying to do it then. It's also quite a big gaff, it's quite big. There's an upstairs and a downstairs. And I think really the secret is to go somewhere miles away from people and just try it out, and no one knows you're there, but you just get a little sense, and of course record it and listen back. But interesting thing was, when I was there, and this is for any comedians out there who are still learning like me, I went to go to this thing at Top Secret, and Brett Goldstein, you know him?
Yeah, I know him.
So he was there, and I'd just done the downstairs, which is a huge, there's a lot of people in there, I think. And I tried this new stuff, and I was so pleased it went well. I said, oh my God, I just tried this whole huge amount. I'm just going upstairs to do the same show, because as I said, there's 2 venues at this.
Yeah, there is.
And Brett went, oh no, I never do new stuff down there. I went, what? He said, no, too difficult down there. Just do it in the upstairs one. I thought, oh my God, why didn't anyone tell me? I thought, this is a new comedy night. new material. So you live and learn. But I mean, the secret is, with any of that new material, you just have to do it. There's no other way. And you just got to be brave. Put your head in the lion's jaws. And if it doesn't go well, I suppose on a night like that, they might understand that it's a new comedy night. But I still, it's horrible if you do something, it doesn't get a laugh. Bloody hell.
That's really interesting. Let's move on to Edinburgh. I am very, very fortunate to be able to go to the Edinburgh Fringe nearly every year, apart from last year. I first went in 2005, and I go there every year for that's my holiday, and I go for a week, and I see about 50 shows in the week.
Bloody hell.
And I'm exhausted. I need a holiday by the time I come back, but I have the best time. Can you tell me what your first Edinburgh Fringe was like? What year was it?
Fantastic.
What were you doing up there?
Great. Well, in 1987, I went to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival with my two mates, Chris and Pat. And we did a show called Seaside Summer Spectacular through the Bristol University Dram Sock.
Right.
And we did it at a church near Easter Road. You know where Hibernian?
Yeah.
Down there, a church there. This is sort of miles away from the festival. It's like doing the West End in Ealing, And we were at this place, and it was so miserable. It was so miserable because we didn't really know this Dram Sock, Bristol University, who were a load of toffs anyway, quite posh public school. And my mate Pat was doing chemistry at Bristol, and he certainly wasn't part of the, drama, lardy drama lot. And we had nowhere to stay, and there was sort of understanding that people would just sleep on the stage in this kind of very arty way, which was hell, of course. It wasn't nearly as arty and lovely. It was just cold and miserable in sleeping bags on a hard floor. We had no money. We were like, I hadn't started. I went to do my degree at Leicester.
Right.
I just left sixth form college, had no money. We were there for 2 weeks. Virtually nobody turned up, doing our wacky studenty review. So it was really, really miserable. And I think after the first week, if I'd had any amount of money, I'd have paid it to just go home. But Pat and Chris were very keen. No, we're going to stick with this. It was like, really? Is it worth it? And, going out, trying to drum up people to come to our show. I hated, we had to be pissed to do that because I was embarrassed by our silly songs. And, whenever I've gone back to Edinburgh Festival many, many, many times as a performer since, I think, I sort of feel a bit sorry for myself then. You're sort of so young and keen. And they weren't particularly nice to us, this Dram Sock. We were like, who are these blokes who somehow have got into this venue? So, it's a hell of a long time ago,
Yeah.
But as you get older, we're a very similar age, Rich, It's sort of funny how time, it oddly doesn't seem, whatever that was, 35 years ago, was it?
That's
more than
extraordinary. It doesn't seem that long, as you say.
No.
The first year I went, I got it out my system, and I thought I want to have a go at being a stand-up comedian, get it out my system. I knew a promoter when I first went up, and I've told this story many times. And I said to them, I'd like to have a go, and they said, well, we can put you on a gong show, which is a Monday afternoon, and it's for old folk. So it couldn't be worse. So I walked out. I had this script ready, and which they liked. And I walked out. There was 3 people in the crowd, and I walked out. And the first thing I said to them was, people think I look like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, but I can't see the resemblance myself. And of course, when I was at college, I was the double of him. And and some bloke at the back just went, fuck off, and gonged me off. I lasted about 10 seconds. And the promoter said, have another go. So the same thing happened, similar thing. And I walked off and I said, never say never, but my places in the audience supporting them, and I've never had a go since. I know I get
Really?
up and do a turn sometimes. I always be comedy and sing along, sing a song or whatever. But I was very pleased I got it out of my system. But never do say never again. But it must be daunting to walk out, and then once you get the audience, you're away. I mean, do you suffer from nerves at all before you?
Yeah, I'm the world's worst. I'm absolutely terrified.
Right.
I feel sick for days before I've got a gig. I mean, I've got a gig tomorrow night in St Albans. I feel mildly nauseous already.
Oh, mate.
I'll feel terrible tomorrow. Yeah, and honestly, Dan Skinner and I, who plays Angelos, do a double act, Angelos and Barry.
Yeah.
Both of us, who we've got gigs, will be texting each other going, I'm just not feeling it, I feel sick, drive miles. There's always that horrible journey on your own, running through your lines, thinking, I just got to get this done. I don't enjoy it at all, honestly. I love doing the touring with people who have come to see the character and they sort of get it.
Once you're on stage, are you okay?
Yeah, I think so, when it's going well.
Yeah.
But as I say, I'm not great if anyone heckles and all that stuff. It's not my favourite thing. I mean, I used to do jonglers as Barry from Watford, and you just get comedians, and that's their job, crowd control, and they're brilliant at it. And I have such respect for that. But I would crumble if there's too. I mean, I can deal with a bit of it. I'm not a complete idiot, but too much of it, and I just have to hold my hands up and go, well, I don't know what to do now. I've shot.
Right.
That's it, yeah. But I think, the reason I get nervous with any sort of performance as an actor or anything. And I think, honestly, this sounds very grand, but if you've dedicated your life to doing it, and it's very much a vocation, my wife and kids have had to put up with sharing this. I'm all about work. I'm a bit of a workaholic. For example, I had to sell our honeymoon because I got a commercial.
Right.
Every time we go on holiday, I have to I've got to leave early, or I can only go for half the holiday, or can I just nip off to go and do something?
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of sacrifices to do this for a living, which I've done all my life. If you're then shit at it. It really, the stakes feel very, very high. It's my whole life. It's my whole sort of identity. To then be crap. It's like, oh, what have I done? I've wasted my entire life. That's how I feel about it.
Well, the only thing I can say is that whenever you are on stage, the confidence that you give off to your characters is extraordinary. Whether or not you're feeling it.
I'm rarely feeling it.
That's a magic quality that you've got. I mean, you go on and you and from my point of view, from the audience, I can imagine you thinking, right, let me at them. And you're away once you know you've got quite a good audience and you've done 2 or 3. You've had to go at 2 or 3 of them. You're away, and you think it's going to be all right.
I suppose, I do sort of think that, but quite a lot of that kind of bravado is that I've really, I've been shitting myself all week. Let's not regret, and that's got to be worth something, But also, just as an actor, you've got to commit to it. There's nothing worse than looking like you're apologising. I mean, either be shit, either underplay it or overplay it. Don't apologise for it. I mean, that's awful, isn't it? And as I say, people are paid.
Yeah.
They don't really care if you're nervous. It's well, I've been doing my job all day, and this is your job now, and I've paid to see it, so bloody well get on with it. I mean, honestly, I think that's true. That's not me. That's not...
No.
Doesn't sound very scientific, but that's just the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah. We've all been living in really horrible times the last year or two. Have you done any online gigs? What's your view of online gigs as opposed to live stand-up?
Right. Well, I've got to say, I've really struggled with this. You know, the mantra about mental health, which I'm never, honestly, I've always thought that's for other people. You know, the sort of, no, it's really important to talk about. I've been wondering, oh God, not again. Do we have to talk? It's really brave of you to splurt all this out on Facebook or whatever. I mean, I just think, I've always thought, oh, fucking pull yourself together, Really. But only now, over the last 15, 16 months, do I realise, you can hit the skids a bit and head downwards. I found it really difficult because, I spent, as I said to you, turning up in other people's sitcoms and having so many near misses with my characters and films that I've done that were going to be a big hit and have gone away. And I did a pilot for HBO and all that. And for the first time, and that went for nothing. So for the first time in my career, what's laughingly known as a career, I was selling out these venues as Clinton. And it was just thrilling, people turning up, and you've written the material. And I just thought, that's all I want to do for the rest of my career is go around. If I can keep touring Clinton, and suddenly, of all the things, the bloody COVID hit. And you'll remember, Richard, at the time there was a lot of talk of, it's 3 weeks. Remember?
It wasn't going to last long.
The longest 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Another time I thought, no, it's not 3 weeks. It's going to be longer. But I didn't expect this. And I remember at the time listening to an interview on Radio 4 where some scientist was going, it's going to be at least a year. And I thought, of course it is. Of course it's going to be. You're not going to this thing's not going to go after 3 weeks. So I really have struggled. And what I did first of all was, not least because I was so pissed off licking my wounds that it sort of went tits up. But then we started doing Zoom performances. Langeloss and Barry show we used to do every week. People watched it. Great fun. We used to write it. It's so amazing, this technology that you can perform from your house and quite good quality sound and vision. And then there was a Clinton Baptiste one I did, and we sold tickets. But at the end of the day, Rich, and I'm sure a lot of comedians will say this, you go, good night, flip the laptop down, go and watch telly. It's not the same thing at all, I mean, it cannot compete with standing in the wings at the bloody, the Pomegranate, I always think of, in Chesterfield. Huge, cavernous theatre. And then loads of people coming in, and you're shitting yourself, palms are sweating, the adrenaline going, thinking, right, what's my first line? There's dry ice on the stage, there's a nice bit of lighting. And there's a sort of stamping of the feet, and your theme music comes on. That is not this.
No. I totally agree. I mean, when it first started, thank God for online comedy, because I don't know how I would have got through. I've just been on my own here, But when it started off, there was no audio. So I would dial in, and the comedians would be away, but they could not hear the audience. Right. So I thought with my loud laugh, I was going to be taken away because people were knocking on the walls.
Right.
And I thought, something's not right here. And then they opened up the audio, and it was better for the comedians with the timing, and they had the front rows and all the rest of it. But I am like you. I look at it as a super substitute. But you cannot beat live comedy. I love to go out on a weekend, go out for a meal with loads of friends, and then go to a comedy club, sit there and say, right, entertain me, because you're of the moment, and you're in the room, and the atmosphere and everything. I'm so pleased that they are slowly opening up.
So am I. I mean that's something I've always thought is, if for whatever reason I can't work on TV, or no one wants me, or no one wants me in the theatre or whatever, the one thing you've got as a performer, this sounds pretentious, but I mean it, if there's one thing you've got, it's the ability to get up on the stage and do it, and not to have a meeting about a meeting about a meeting with a production company. You just go, here's my material. Oh yeah, you know, this guy will give me a go. And you can go and do it. And so I think if that goes, if there's no live performance, I mean, it's just catastrophic. It's like I've spent my whole life, doing that, and my career, and as I say, given up quite a lot.
Of course,
You know, it's got to come back, and I'm thinking about my tour. If it means performing to half the house, you know, you do sort of two smaller audience, you know, like 2 shows a night.
I was going to say, you can maybe do 2 in one night.
Yeah. I mean, I would do that. I don't know whether that's on the cards.
I know they do that at Always Be Comedy. They have an early show and a late show now.
So people don't have to sit so close together.
So it's all socially distanced, and they have a 7 o'clock one and a 9 o'clock one, and they do an hour.
Yeah, I think if that's the way it's got to be, it's a bit of a worry because, of course, look, as you say, by the time people will hear this, maybe things will be sorted out. But currently, where we're sitting here now, nobody knows anything. I was listening to Radio 4 today. There's a woman from the lead mill in Sheffield, and I thought, she must know something. That's quite a notorious thing. She knew just as much as I did. You know, everyone's waiting to hear. I thought, I must hear this. Surely. And she just went, well, you know. And they said, well, how long have you been expecting news? She said, well, you know, months on end. I'd like someone to tell us what's going on. But I don't think people know, do they? The government.
That's the thing. What is very encouraging from your point of view, though, is there's an imminent tour. You've been writing, of course. Where do you get your ideas from for the tours or for the new shows, or do you have a way of creating new material?
To be honest, you alluded to it when we did these internet shows. We did so many gags. It was me writing, Sam Delaney. Do you know Sam Delaney? Sam, Simon London, who's an ex-BBC comedy producer. Who else? His mate was chiming in. And so we did so many great gags for the Clinton internet shows. I've got to be honest, I nicked loads of them and just brought them along. Then you kind of look at them and you go, it doesn't quite work for live. So I went out with my mate, Fraser Steele, who writes for Jonathan Ross, he's written for everybody. And we spent a day together, socially distanced, and I went through the script. It was exactly what I did for the last one, and just said, can you just tickle this up? And then it's not necessarily him tickling it up, then he'll say something and say, oh great, what about this gag? And then you know, and it just feels like, as I say, belt and braces. It may be that
it's brilliant.
We sat there for 3 hours and we couldn't think of a gag, you know, but that's what I like to know. I want to be on the stage knowing I've done absolutely everything to shore this up, you know.
That's wonderful. Who are your favourite comedians, past and present?
Stand-up comedians and the like.
Or TV comedians.
Well, as I say, Ronnie Barker and those comedy actors. In turn, you know, growing up, Mike Yarwood was one of my favourites. When I was in my sort of early 20s, Vic and Bob, when they did Big Night Out, I mean, there's something I love, and it's something I just don't do. I would love to be able to do. I wish it was my humour, like Harry Hill, and that just slightly surreal take that Vic and Bob did. I mean, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's like people have done surrealist stuff before, but that sort of comedy, which is slightly surreal, but just has the tiniest bit of logic in it, where you go, yeah, I can see that's a sort of strange way of, you know what I mean? Not just sort of, you know, not just kind of doing just utter mad shit that you go, I don't know what that means, but, you know, I can't even think of an example now, but Vic and Bob do it occasionally, and you'll go, that does have some strange relevance to the real world, but since you put it like that, that is a bit odd, you know. That's the kind of comedy I like, but it's just not me. I'm just too old-fashioned.
My first ever comedy show, I was aged 7, something like that, on a family holiday in Scarborough. We went to see Les Dawson.
Oh yeah,
and who was just incredible. And then then a year later, we saw Tommy Cooper.
Right.
And just got the bug. He was extraordinary. But Vic and Bob, I saw the Big Night Out on tour in 1990.
Bloody hell,
Les, who was my favourite character in Big Night Out, other than the main two, walked onto the stage in his scientist coat.
That's right.
Head, and there was a ladder on stage, and he climbed the ladder, and he produced a fishing rod and started fishing for loaves which were thrown at him on stage, and the audience were going bananas. And just like the TV show, nobody had ever seen it before. I thought, what is going on here? This is extraordinary. And that was the magic of them. I remember watching them on Channel 4. I kept switching it back over because I thought, what is going on here? They were extraordinary. They are extraordinary at what they do, you know.
I like the fact that they were really not great performers when they started. They would sort of fluff lines and gabble stuff, or, you know, you couldn't. The amateurishness of that was so sort of charming.
Magic. Yeah.
And it's, as I say, it's not me. I'm much more kind of, this is the finished, polished thing. But I love that. I'm trying to think. When you mentioned Les Dawson, you know, only the other day. He's another one. I really love comedy actors, and you know, Sissy and Ada when they used to do that thing, you know, like two women and mouthing the words, which is what they used to do in the factories in Lancashire over the machines. And I laughed my head off at that, you know, and it was just something about and it was just something that was on Facebook or something, you know, occasionally these things do the rounds, and I just clicked on it. And there was something so accurate about, there was just one movement that Les Dawson did, and it kind of spoke volumes, you know. I love that economy where you go, my God, I can really see why it's sort of so accurate in the tiniest way.
He had so much ammunition to his act. He had the funny face, he could play the piano badly, he could do character acting, he was extraordinary with words. That show, I can remember watching as clear as day, and I was 7 years old. The whole family were around me laughing at him. And I saw him just before he died, God bless him. He was in a production of the Ray Cooney farce, Run for Your Wife.
Right,
and
I know.
This was at Newcastle, and he knew that it wasn't that good. It's a successful play, but it wasn't very good for him. But he walked on, and he did 10 minutes of stand-up before he did the play. And there was myself, my girlfriend at the time, and a woman with a baby next to me. The audience wasn't very full, and the baby was crying. And he jumped down after 10 minutes, and he went up to the baby, and he literally had his hand down on his mouth, and he went, I don't want that, I want the smile. And the baby stopped crying, and I was like, bloody hell, this is extraordinary. And that was the magic of the man. He is up there. The reason why I love comedy and the blog and everything's Morecambe and Wise. I never got to see them live, but I've seen plays and read everything about them. TV, of course, but Les Dawson is definitely top 5. He's made me laugh so much over the years, and of course Tommy Cooper was the other one. But I've seen so many, as I said at the start. I've seen nearly 1,000, and I just love to go, and it's just wonderful.
You know, two things. One, the other guy I really used to like was, and I know when I stopped doing this, I think, oh, why didn't I mention this one and that one? I used to love Bruce Forsyth when he used to do Generation Game. And even Play Your Cards Right.
He was a master.
And I'd like to think Clinton has that sort of slightly waspish,
very much so.
you know, but, you know, I mean, Bruce Forsyth picking up people's terrible attempts at pottering. Yeah, it's not really, is it? I mean, look at that. I mean, that's all coming off. I mean, it's so easy and also so warm. It's like a piss take, but it doesn't matter. And what I love was in those days people weren't so media savvy.
Exactly. Yeah,
they wouldn't try to get a TV series off the back of being humiliated on, it's just great. It's so British as well. That sort of, it's not really much of a good. And look at what have you done here? You have the expert on. I mean, what do you think? One out of 10. One for effort. I mean,
the wonderful thing I used to love about Bruce Forsyth. Eric Morecambe did it, and Laurel and Hardy did it. Oliver Hardy. He had a camera right by his face, so he could look at the camera and give the audience the best reaction. And I used to go to a lot of TV recordings, and we were very lucky to be in the first Have I Got News For You recording with Bruce Forsyth. And nobody knew it was him. And I was sitting above Ian Hislop's desk. There's a famous bit in it where he's trying to read an article, and he can't read it, and I am crying with laughter. And he turns around and he goes, "Please, this is satire." And you can hear me as clear as bell off the video. And I thought, I'm on it.
Oh, mate,
he was extraordinary.
He was really, really good. And of course, it's difficult for the young people to realise now. They just see him.
He was amazing.
He was. I mean, you used to get 26 million people, whatever it was, watching Generation Game. But the other thing I was going to say, Rich, actually, and I meant to say earlier, you saying, "Oh, I've got it out my system," being a stand-up. Couldn't you harness that lovely joie de vivre you have? And you do a character that's a heightened version of yourself. I mean, it's all pretend. And you do that laugh, and it's like you're a mad, keen comedy.
Yeah.
There's something in that you just. I think it could work, and it would be utterly charming. Or you enhance that laugh, and you just get more and more hysterical with the laughter. I mean, I think there's a lot in that. I think there's a lot in that.
My friend. You've got a great idea.
It's a great idea, and you just get more and more hysterical. I mean, that's not the most original idea, is it? There are people who have.
Do you could probably name Ken
them.
Goodwin when he used to just collapse with his laugh.
That's what I mean. Something like that, and you just start doing the laugh. I mean.
That's such a good idea.
There's something in it. I wouldn't give up yet, mate.
No. Well, you never know. You never know. Just before we go, and I've so much enjoyed chatting to you. I could talk to you all night.
You too, mate.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Have you got? You say you got the tour coming up, and you got your podcast, and also where can people find you on social media?
Okay, so. Real Clinton B on Twitter.
Yeah.
Real Clinton B. Barry from Watt, W-A-T, on Twitter. Alex Lowe on Facebook. I tell you what, here's something. If anybody is interested in having one of those celeb dedications, Cameo, Memo, Celeb VM, I do those as Clinton here in front of this stuff, and I give a dedication. I only say it because I really make an effort. It's not like I go.
I will have one for my birthday. It's coming up.
I do artist for you, mate. But look, only because in these very difficult times when there's not much going on, it has sort of kept me afloat over the last few months, mate. Which has been bit nerve-wracking.
When does the tour start?
The tour starts. The tour starts on the 1st of September in Bristol. I'm going to be rehearsing in Watford, where I live, at a little theatre in August.
Yeah.
I just went today to collect a cape for my silvery outfit. I've gone Clinton has gone much more upmarket since this tour. And the idea is he's come back from Vegas. So I just figured the last tour looked so homemade, and that was kind of charming, but it's nice to kind of get bigger and better. And the venues have got bigger. Whether anyone will turn up because of COVID, I don't know. I still don't know.
Well, mate, I think you've got two of the greatest characters in British comedy.
Oh,
I really
great.
do. And as I said early on, whenever you're on a bill, I always look forward to seeing you. I always know I'm going to have a great time. I'm going to be first in the queue for the new tour. We want to see you back at Always Be Comedy soon, or touring around London.
Definitely.
And I just want to thank you so much for your time. You've been a wonderful guest.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Rich.
My pleasure. You take care, my friend, and all the best to you.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks now.